The first time Elena Carter said Luca Moretti's name on live television, the entire studio went silent. Not because the name was unfamiliar, because in New York, people knew better than to say it too loudly. The cameras were rolling. The lights were merciless. The glass desk in front of her reflected her pale face, her steady mouth, and the stack of documents she had spent 14 months collecting in secret. Bank transfers, sealed court filings, photos from private docs at midnight, names of judges, senators, police captains, and men who vanished after meeting the wrong people. Across from her, on the massive studio screen, was a photo of Luca Moretti stepping out of a black car in the rain. Tailored coat, hanging from his shoulders like armor, his eyes cold enough to make even a photograph feel dangerous. Elena looked straight into camera too. "Tonight," she said, her voice calm despite the pulse hammering beneath her ribs, "we expose the man New York has been too afraid to name." The producer in her earpiece whispered, "Stay with it, Elena." She did. Luca Moretti is not just a billionaire investor. He is not just the owner of luxury hotels, private security firms, and shipping companies. According to the documents obtained by this network, Luca Moretti is the head of one of the most powerful organized crime families in America. Somewhere behind the lights, someone gasped. Elena did not blink. For 14 months, she had been followed, threatened, warned, and bribed. A black SUV had parked outside her apartment every night for weeks. Anonymous calls came at 2:13 a.m. A white rose appeared on her doorstep the morning after. She refused to drop the investigation. She had thought all of it came from him, from Luca Moretti, the monster in the expensive suit, the man whose silence seemed more terrifying than other men's rage. Tonight, she would destroy him, or so she believed. The studio doors opened. At first, Elena thought it was part of the segment, a staffer moving too quickly, security correcting a mistake. Then she saw the gun. A man in a black jacket stepped into the studio aisle, his face hidden beneath a baseball cap, his arm rising toward the stage. The audience screamed. The control room erupted in her earpiece. "Elena, get down!" But before her body could obey, before fear could reach her knees, someone moved faster than the bullet. Luca Moretti came from the shadows beside the stage. He had been there the entire time, in person, watching her expose him. He crossed the studio like a storm given human shape, grabbed Elena by the waist, and threw his body over hers as the first shot shattered the glass desk. The sound cracked through the building. Millions of people watching across America saw the impossible happen live. The Mafia Boss Elena had just exposed shielded her with his own body. His hand pressed against the back of her head, forcing her down against his chest. His coat smelled of rain, cedar, and smoke. His heart beat hard beneath her cheek, controlled but human. Another shot rang out. Luca's jaw tightened. He looked over his shoulder, eyes turning black. "Touch her again," he said, his voice low enough that only Elena heard it, "and I'll bury your entire bloodline." Then the screen cut to black, and Elena Carter's life ended in front of the world. By midnight, her face was everywhere. News clips replayed the same 3 seconds again and again. Elena accusing Luca Moretti, the gunman entering frame, Luca lunging toward her, his arms closing around her like she belonged to him. The internet called it a scandal. The police called it an assassination attempt. The tabloids called it romance. Elena called it a nightmare. She woke in a private hospital room above Manhattan, rain sliding down the windows in silver lines. Her throat burned. Her left temple throbbed. There was a bruise around her wrist where Luca had grabbed her, and another on her shoulder where he had dragged her beneath the desk. At the foot of the bed stood 2 men in black suits. Not police, Moretti men. Her mouth went dry. "Where am I?" Neither answered. The door opened. Luca Moretti entered without asking permission. In person, he was worse than he had been in photographs. Taller, quieter, more dangerous because he didn't need to perform danger. It simply moved with him. His dark hair was still damp from the rain. His white shirt was open at the throat beneath a black coat. There was dried blood on his cuff. Elena's gaze dropped to it. "Is that mine?" she asked. His eyes followed hers. No. The answer should have comforted her. It didn't. She pushed herself upright, ignoring the pain. "You need to leave. You're welcome. I didn't ask you to save me." "No," Luca said, stepping closer. "You were busy accusing me of crimes on national television." "You mean telling the truth?" His expression didn't change, but something sharpened in his eyes. "Part of it." Elena's heartbeat stuttered. "What does that mean?" "It means you are intelligent enough to find documents," he said, "but not careful enough to ask who planted them." She laughed once, cold and disbelieving. "You expect me to believe I was manipulated? I expect you to survive long enough to be angry about it." He placed a phone on the bed beside her. On the screen was a paused security video from outside the studio. A black van, 3 armed men, a symbol spray-painted faintly near the rear door. A silver wolf. Elena recognized it from one of her files. Bellini, a rival crime family. Her stomach tightened. "The gunman wasn't mine," Luca said. "And I'm supposed to trust you?" "No." He leaned slightly closer, his voice dropping. "You're supposed to fear me enough to listen." There it was. The monster. Calm, controlled, honest about the darkness in him. Elena lifted her chin. "I will never belong to you, Mr. Moretti." For the first time, his expression changed. Not a smile, something more dangerous. "No," he said softly, "but after tonight, every man who wants to kill me will believe you do." The words settled over the room like a verdict. Outside the door, footsteps moved. Men spoke in low Italian. Somewhere in the distance, a helicopter passed over the city. Elena looked toward the rain-streaked window and saw her own reflection, bruised, alive, trapped, because Luca Moretti was right. She had exposed him, he had saved her, and now the whole world believed she was his weakness. By morning, Elena's apartment had burned. The call came from a detective she used to trust. He sounded nervous, careful, like every word was being recorded by someone with power. "Elena, don't go home." She gripped the hospital phone. "What happened?" "A pause. Gas leak." She closed her eyes. "I don't have gas in my building." The detective said nothing. When she turned, Luca was standing in the doorway, already watching her. "I need to see it," she said. "No, you don't get to tell me no. I do when your building is ash, and the men who set it are still looking for your body." She ripped the IV tape from her hand and swung her legs over the bed. "I am not hiding in your hospital while my life burns down. You don't have a life to go back to." The cruelty of it stopped her. Luca saw the wound land. For half a second, something moved across his face. Regret, maybe, or anger at himself for showing too much. Then it was gone. "Elena," he said quieter, "they didn't burn your apartment to scare you. They burned it because they failed to kill you on live television." Her breath trembled. In the silence, his phone buzzed. He looked at the screen, and his eyes went colder. "What?" she asked. He turned the phone toward her. A photo, her younger sister, Claire, walking out of a daycare center in Brooklyn, holding the hand of a 5-year-old boy with dark curls and a red backpack. Elena's blood turned to ice. Below the image was a message. "Tell the journalist to keep talking." Elena lunged for the phone. "That's my nephew." "I know." Her eyes snapped to him. "How do you know?" Luca didn't answer quickly enough. The room changed. Every sound dulled. "Elena, how do you know my nephew?" His jaw tightened. "I had your family watched." The slap came before she thought. Her palm cracked across his face. The 2 guards at the door stepped forward. Luca raised one hand, stopping them without looking away from her. Elena's voice shook with fury. "You put men outside my sister's home?" "I put men outside your sister's home because someone else was already there. You watched my family. I protected them." You don't get to call surveillance protection. You don't get to be naive and call it freedom. The words hit like another slap, but this time she had no answer, because behind his controlled voice was something she hadn't expected. Fear, not for himself. For her. Luca stepped closer, slowly this time, as if approaching a wounded animal that still had teeth. Your sister and the boy are being moved now. My men will take them somewhere safe. No, they already are. I said no. And I said they are alive because I don't wait for permission when someone threatens what matters. The room went still. Elena stared at him. What matters? Luca looked at her mouth for one dangerous second, then back into her eyes. You are under my protection now. I don't want your protection. You lost the right to refuse it when you made yourself the center of a war. I made myself a journalist. You made yourself a target. She hated that her eyes burned, hated that he saw it, hated that his voice softened by a fraction when he said her name. Elena, no, she whispered. Do not say my name like that. Like what? Like you know me. The silence that followed felt too heavy. Then Luca said, I know more than you think. Before she could ask what that meant, the hospital lights flickered, once, twice, then went out. The emergency lights bled red over the walls. Luca moved instantly. He pulled a gun from inside his coat and stepped in front of her bed. Elena froze. Somewhere in the hall, a guard shouted. Then came the sound of breaking glass. Luca looked back at her, his face carved from shadow. Stay behind me. This time, Elena listened. They escaped through the service elevator while gunfire cracked above them. Luca kept one hand around her wrist, not gentle, not cruel, just certain. His body stayed between hers and every open hallway, every doorway, every sound. In the underground garage, black SUVs waited with engines running. Rain hammered the concrete entrance. A man opened the back door. Elena stopped. I am not getting in that car. Luca turned. Behind him, the hospital alarms screamed. Red light painted his cheekbones. Blood darkened the side of his shirt where a bullet had grazed him. He looked like danger. He looked like shelter. Elena, he said, calm as death, you can hate me in the car. A bullet struck the pillar beside her head. Concrete exploded. Luca grabbed her and shoved her into the SUV, covering her body with his as the vehicle tore out into the rain. New York blurred around them. Sirens. Neon. Wet asphalt. Luca's men speaking into radios. Elena's own breath, too loud, in her ears. She realized his hand was still on her, spread across her ribs, protective, possessive. He noticed when she looked down. Slowly, he removed it, but the absence felt almost worse. The safe house was not a house. It was a penthouse above the city, hidden behind 3 shell companies and a private elevator that opened only with Luca's palm print. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Manhattan like a kingdom he could buy, burn, or bury. Elena stood in the living room, wrapped in a borrowed black coat, watching rain slide down the glass. You live here? She asked. No. Then what is this? One of many places people don't know to look. Of course, men like Luca Moretti didn't have homes. They had fortresses. A woman entered with medical supplies and a dress folded over her arm. Mr. Moretti, the room is ready. Elena turned. Room? Luca removed his cufflinks. You'll sleep here tonight. I'll sleep anywhere you're not. His gaze lifted. The woman quickly left. For a long second, only rain spoke between them. You think I want you here? Luca asked. I think you want control. I already have control. The arrogance should have angered her. It did, but beneath it was a truth she didn't want to examine. He had the city moving around her. Doctors, cars, guards, safe routes, information before police had it. He was the kind of man who didn't chase power because power had learned to come when he called. And yet, when he looked at her, there was something unsettled in him, something that made her feel less like a hostage and more like a wound he couldn't stop touching. Why were you at the studio? She asked. He looked away. I was invited. No, you weren't. A pause. Then, I knew Bellini would move tonight. How? Because I let him think your report would destroy me. Her stomach dropped. You used me. His silence answered. Elena stepped back, as if he had struck her. You knew I was going on air. Yes. You knew they might come. I knew they would. Her voice broke. And you let me walk onto that stage? Luca's face hardened, but his eyes didn't. I had 20 men in that building, and still a gunman got through. His jaw tightened. Yes, the admission was quiet. It hurt him. Good, she thought. Let it hurt. You made me bait. I made myself bait, he said sharply. Bellini wanted me exposed. He wanted me angry, unstable, surrounded by cameras. He wanted the world to see me bleed, but he shot at me because he saw what I saw too late. Elena's breath caught. What? Luca came closer, but stopped before touching her. That hurting you would hurt me more. The room tilted. Elena stared at him, trying to find manipulation in his face. She found control, darkness, exhaustion, but not a lie. You don't even know me, she whispered. His eyes dropped, just for a second, to the bruise on her wrist. I know you drink coffee too late and forget to eat when you're working. I know you call your sister every Sunday, even when you're angry. I know you keep your father's press badge in the left drawer of your desk. I know you pretend not to be afraid because fear feels like losing. Elena couldn't breathe. How long? He said nothing. How long have you been watching me? Luca's voice was low. 5 years. The penthouse seemed to shrink around her. 5 years. Every shadow outside her apartment. Every feeling of being followed. Every instinct that told her someone was there. It had been him. You're sick. Yes. The honesty stunned her more than denial would have. Luca looked at her as if there was no point pretending he was anything better than what he was. But you are alive. Elena's eyes filled, furious and helpless. Why? For the first time, Luca Moretti looked away. Because your father died, saving my life. The words entered the room softly, then destroyed it. Elena's father, Daniel Carter, had been an investigative journalist too. He had died when Elena was 22, killed in what police called a car accident near the East River. She had spent years believing the world had taken him randomly. Now, Luca looked at her as if he had been standing at the center of that grief all along. What did you say? Luca's voice was careful. Your father was investigating the Bellini family. He found evidence that they were working with federal agents, judges, and men inside my organization. He came to warn me. No, he saved my life that night. No, Elena, my father hated men like you. He hated what men like me do. Luca's expression tightened, but he hated cowards more. Her chest hurt. Did you kill him? The question came out as a whisper. Luca went still. Then he stepped closer. Slowly, his eyes locked on hers. No. Did your family? No. Did you know who did? His silence was the answer that broke her. Elena backed away until she hit the window. Rain ran behind her like tears. You knew. I was 27, Luca said. My father was still alive. I didn't have the power then that I have now. You had enough power to survive. His face flinched. A small thing, almost invisible, but she saw it. You let me spend years thinking he died in an accident. I sent money anonymously. I didn't need your money. I know. You watched me grieve. Yes. Her voice turned sharp. Why didn't you tell me? Because if you knew, you would investigate. I did anyway. And now they're trying to kill you. The truth sat between them, ugly and impossible. Elena wanted to hate him cleanly, but grief was never clean. Luca looked at her like a man standing outside a locked door he had no right to enter. I owed your father a debt, he said. At first, that was all it was. At first? His eyes lifted. The air changed. He didn't answer. He didn't need to. That night, Elena dreamed of her father's voice and woke to thunder. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then she saw the black silk sheets, the city lights, the locked bedroom door, and remembered. She opened the door. A guard stood outside. "Move," she said. "Ma'am, move, or I scream." He didn't move, so she screamed. 3 seconds later, Luca appeared at the end of the hall, barefoot, shirt sleeves rolled to his elbows, gun in hand. His eyes scanned her body first. Not the room, her. "What happened?" "I want air." His gaze shifted to the guard. The man lowered his eyes. Luca looked back at Elena. "The terrace. I want to go outside. The terrace has air. It also has your permission." His mouth hardened. Then he turned and walked. Elena followed him through the penthouse to a glass door leading onto a covered terrace high above Manhattan. Rain misted the edges. Wind pulled at her hair. The city below looked distant and unreal. For several minutes, neither spoke. Then Elena said, "Did my father suffer?" Luca's jaw tightened. "No." She looked at him. "Don't lie to me." His voice was quiet. "Not for long." Her throat closed. She nodded once, turning away before he could see her tears. But he saw anyway. Luca stepped closer. Not enough to touch, just enough for his warmth to exist beside her in the cold. "I killed the man who gave the order," he said. Elena closed her eyes. "That's supposed to comfort me?" "No." "Then why say it?" "Because you asked for the truth." She laughed through the pain. "Your truth comes wrapped in blood. So does justice in my world. Maybe your world is the problem." "Yes." The answer was so immediate, she looked at him. He stood with his hands in his pockets, rain misting his dark hair, face turned toward the city he half owned and half haunted. "I was born into it," he said. "But I chose what I became." The admission was not an apology. It was worse. It was accountability. Elena hated that it moved something in her. Behind them, the terrace door slid open. A guard stepped out. "Boss." Bellini sent another message. Luca took the phone. Elena watched his face change. Not fear, rage under glass. "What is it?" she asked. He didn't hand her the phone, so she took it. This time, the photo was of her sister Claire sitting in a safe house kitchen, holding her son asleep against her shoulder, taken from outside the window. Below it, "You can't protect all of them." Elena's knees weakened. Luca caught her elbow. She pulled away. "Don't." His hand opened and fell, but his voice was deadly calm when he turned to his men. "Move them again. No digital trail, no phones, no police." One guard nodded. Luca added, "And bring me Bellini's cousin." Elena looked at him. "What are you going to do?" Luca's eyes stayed on the rain. "What he understands." The next morning, the world turned against Elena. A leaked video appeared online. Edited footage from the studio made it look as if Elena and Luca had known each other before the broadcast. A camera angle caught Luca standing in the shadows before the attack, watching her with unreadable intensity. The headline wrote itself. Was Elena Carter's Mafia expose a lover's betrayal? By noon, her network suspended her pending investigation. By 3, protesters gathered outside the studio. By evening, a federal agent appeared at Luca's penthouse with a warrant and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Agent Thomas Reed. Elena knew him. He had been her source for 6 months. He had given her the sealed filings. He had told her Luca was the devil. Now he stood in Luca's living room, looking too comfortable. "Elena," Reed said warmly, "thank God you're alive." Luca stood beside the bar, silent. Elena's instinct screamed. Reed held out a hand. "Come with us. We can protect you." Luca's voice cut through the room. "No, you can't." Reed turned to him. "This doesn't concern you. She concerns me." The words were quiet, possessive. Every person in the room felt them. Elena looked at Luca, then back at Reed. "How did you get up here?" she asked. Reed smiled. "Federal warrant?" "No," she said. "How did you know I was here?" The smile faltered. "Just a little." Luca noticed. "So did Elena." Reed said, "You're traumatized. You're confused. Did you plant the documents?" "Elena, did you?" Reed's face changed. The mask didn't fall completely, but it cracked. "You were supposed to expose him?" Reed said softly. not become his weakness. Luca moved, not fast, not dramatic. He simply crossed the distance, and suddenly the room belonged to him. Reed's hand twitched toward his jacket. Luca's men raised their guns. Elena stepped between them. Stop. Luca froze. Not because Reed was dangerous, because Elena had spoken. Reed laughed under his breath. That's touching. Elena turned on him. You used me. I gave you the truth. You gave me a weapon and aimed me at him. I aimed you at a criminal. And the studio shooting? Reed's silence answered. Her stomach twisted. You knew. Reed's eyes cooled. Collateral pressure. Luca's hand closed into a fist. Elena felt the violence in him before it moved. She turned, placing a hand against his chest. It was the first time she touched him by choice. Luca went completely still. His heart beat under her palm. Hard. Controlled. Elena, he said, voice low. Not here, she whispered. His eyes dropped to her hand. Something dangerous softened at the edges. Not kindness, restraint. For her, Reed saw it and smiled. There it is, he said. The great Luca Moretti, brought to heel by a reporter. Luca looked at him. Take Agent Reed downstairs, he said. Reed's smile vanished. Elena stepped back. Luca, he didn't look at her. I won't kill him. For some reason, that did not reassure her. The next hours passed like a storm, locked inside glass. Elena demanded answers. Luca gave some. Reed had been feeding her selected truths, turning her investigation into a trap. Bellini wanted Luca publicly exposed so rival families, federal agencies, and investors would abandon him. Reed wanted Bellini's money and Luca's empire broken. And Elena had been perfect, credible, brave, angry, grieving, a dead journalist's daughter carrying her father's unfinished war. It should have made her feel foolish. Instead, it made her furious. That night, she found Luca alone in a dark room lined with old books and security monitors. On one screen was her sister asleep in a new safe house. On another, Claire's son playing with a toy car beside a guard. Elena stood behind him. You really did protect them. Luca didn't turn. Yes. For years? Yes. Even when I was investigating you? Especially then. She walked closer. On a third screen, she saw her old apartment hallway. Archive footage, herself coming home late, exhausted, carrying groceries and a laptop bag. Behind her, a man she had never noticed stepped from the stairwell. Then, one of Luca's guards appeared. The man disappeared. Elena's throat tightened. How many times? Luca's voice was quiet. Enough. She looked at him then. At the man America feared. At the man she had hated. At the man who had built a cage around her without permission, then filled that cage with guards, secrets, and survival. You had no right. No, but I might be dead without it. Yes. She hated the honesty. She hated that it made her want to understand him. What happens now? Luca turned in the chair. His face was half-shadowed, half-lit by the monitors. Bellini will come for you again. Because of the broadcast? Because of me. The words settled into the room. Elena crossed her arms. Then deny it. His eyes narrowed. What? Deny I matter. Publicly. Say you saved me because cameras were watching. Say I mean nothing. Luca rose slowly. The air changed with him. No. It would protect me. It would make you look disposable. That's the point. To men like Bellini, disposable means available. She swallowed. And if the world thinks I'm yours? His gaze moved over her face, slow and controlled. Then they hesitate. But they still come. Yes. So I'm trapped either way. Luca stepped closer. Yes. The answer should have terrified her. Instead, it steadied something, because finally, someone was not lying. Elena lifted her chin. Then we use it. Luca stopped. No. You said they think I'm your weakness. Let's make them believe it. His expression turned lethal. Absolutely not. A fake relationship, she said. Public appearances. Controlled leaks. Make Bellini come closer. No. Why? Because it's dangerous? Because I know what happens when I pretend something is mine. Her pulse changed. Luca's voice dropped. I stopped pretending. For a moment, the city outside disappeared. There was only the space between them. Too small, too charged. Elena should have stepped back. She didn't. And what happens then? She asked. Luca's eyes lowered to her mouth. His hand lifted slightly, almost touching her cheek. Almost. Then he stopped himself. Then men die, he said. The fake relationship began the next morning. Not because Luca agreed, because Elena walked into his dining room wearing a black dress sent by one of his stylists, hair pinned back, eyes clear, and told his entire team, I'm done. Hiding. Luca looked up from his phone. For 1 second, the room forgot how to breathe. The dress was elegant, severe, nothing revealing, but on Elena, it looked like a declaration of war. Luca's jaw tightened. No. Elena picked up a piece of toast from his untouched plate. Good morning to you too. His men stared at the floor. You are not going outside. There's a charity gala tonight at the Bellini-owned museum wing. Half the city's donors will be there. So will Marco Bellini. Luca's eyes darkened. Who told you that? I'm a journalist. You're a target. I'm both. He stood. The room emptied without anyone being told. When they were alone, Luca approached her with the slow patience of a predator trying not to frighten its prey. You think bravery and recklessness are the same thing, because grief taught you standing still feels like surrender. Elena's breath caught. Don't analyze me. Then stop making it easy. She stepped closer too. You think control can replace trust because power has never abandoned you? Something flashed in his eyes. She had hit bone. For a moment, neither moved. Then Luca said, if you go, you stay beside me. Fine. If I tell you to leave, you leave. No. Elena, I am not your soldier. No, he said. You are worse. You are the one person in any room I will make irrational decisions for. The confession landed like a hand around her heart. Before she could respond, he stepped away. Wear diamonds, he said coldly. She blinked. What? If we are making them believe you're mine, then look untouchable. The gala glittered like a beautiful lie. Crystal chandeliers, champagne towers, marble floors, polished until they reflected the sins of everyone standing on them. Elena entered on Luca Moretti's arm. The room changed. Conversations died. Cameras turned. Men who had called her a liar now looked at her as if she were a queen walking beside a loaded gun. Luca wore black. Of course he did. His hand rested at the small of her back, light enough to be polite, firm enough to be a warning. Every camera caught it. Every enemy understood it. Elena smiled, like her life wasn't hanging by a thread. You're enjoying this, Luca murmured. I enjoy making rich hypocrites nervous. Careful. That almost sounded like something I would say. Don't flatter yourself. His mouth nearly curved. Nearly. Then his eyes moved past her shoulder, and whatever warmth had almost appeared vanished. Marco Bellini approached with a glass of champagne and the smile of a man who had never been denied anything he couldn't steal. He was younger than Luca, golden-haired, beautiful in a cruel way. Elena Carter, Marco said, America's most dangerous journalist. Elena held his gaze. Marco Bellini, New York's most desperate heir. A murmur spread nearby. Marco laughed. Luca did not. Careful, Marco said softly. Some men don't appreciate women with sharp mouths. Luca's hand shifted on Elena's back. Some men lose their hands for noticing her mouth. The room went still. Elena's pulse jumped. Marco's smile thinned. So it's true, he said. The reporter belongs to you. Elena answered before Luca could. No. I stand beside him. Luca looked down at her. Something raw passed through his eyes. Gone before anyone else could see it. Marco saw enough. His gaze sharpened. You should ask what happened to the last woman who stood beside a Moretti. Luca went motionless. Elena felt it. A hidden wound. Marco leaned closer. He didn't tell you about Sophia. The name hit Luca like a blade. Elena looked at him. Luca's face gave nothing away, but his hand fell from her back, and that, somehow, hurt more than it should have. Later, she found him on a balcony overlooking Fifth Avenue, alone in the cold. "Sophia," she said. His shoulders tightened. "Go inside." "No, Elena. I'm getting tired of hearing my name as a warning." He turned. She was my fiancée. The world seemed to still. Elena folded her arms against the cold. "What happened?" "She betrayed my family to Bellini." "Did you love her?" A pause. "Yes." The answer was honest. "It burned anyway." "What happened to her?" Luca looked out over the city. "She died before I could decide whether to forgive her." Elena's anger softened despite herself. "I'm sorry." "Don't be." She made her choices. You say that like grief listens to logic. His eyes returned to her. For once, he looked tired. Not weak. Never weak, but haunted. "She taught me that love is a door enemies use." Elena stepped closer. "And what am I?" His gaze held hers for a long, dangerous moment. "The lock I keep failing to close." The balcony door opened behind them. A woman screamed from inside. Then the chandeliers went out. Darkness swallowed the gala. Elena heard Luca say her name. Then an explosion shattered the night. Smoke filled the museum. People ran blindly through the dark, diamonds flashing like broken stars. Luca seized Elena's hand and pulled her through the chaos, his body shielding hers from glass, fire, and panic. Marco's men had turned the gala into a trap, but this time Elena saw the war clearly, not as documents, not as headlines, as terror, as blood on marble. As Luca lifting a wounded waiter out of the path of a stampede before shoving Elena behind a statue, "You save people," she said, breathless. His eyes were scanning the smoke. Not enough. A gunman appeared above them on the staircase. Elena saw him first. "Luca!" She threw herself into him. The bullet struck the wall where his head had been. For one stunned second, Luca looked at her like she had done something unforgivable. Then his face changed. Fear. Pure, uncontrolled fear. Not for himself. For her. He dragged her behind cover, hands moving over her shoulders, her arms, her face. "Are you hit?" "No." "Are you hit?" "No, Luca." His hands stopped on her face. His thumb brushed ash from her cheek. The world burned around them, but all Elena could see was the crack in his control. "You saved me," he said, almost to himself. "You look surprised." "I am. Get used to it." Something broke between them then. Not fully, not safely, but enough. Luca leaned closer, his forehead almost touching hers. "Elena." This time, her name didn't sound like a warning. It sounded like surrender. Then, his radio crackled. "Boss. Bellini has the sister." Elena's blood went cold. Claire. The next 12 hours turned Luca Moretti into something Elena had only seen whispered about in fear. No more restraint. No more polished billionaire. No more controlled monster in a tailored suit. Only the Mafia Boss. The city bent under him. Private docks closed. Men disappeared from poker rooms and hotel bars. Bellini warehouses burned along the East River, orange flames reflected in black water. Police scanners went dead in 3 precincts. Judges stopped answering calls. Luca moved through it all with terrifying calm. Elena stayed in his war room, refusing to be sent away. On the main screen, Marco Bellini appeared in a live video feed, seated in an abandoned church somewhere outside the city. Candles burned around him. Claire sat tied to a chair, bruised but alive. Her son was not visible. Elena's knees nearly gave out. Marco smiled into the camera. "Come alone, Luca. Bring the journalist. Or the sister dies first." Luca's voice was quiet. If he touched the boy, he didn't. One of his men said quickly, "The child is hidden somewhere else. We're still looking." Elena turned to Luca. I'm going. No, she's my sister, and you are exactly what he wants. I don't care. I do. The words silenced the room. Luca didn't seem to notice anyone else existed. He came to her slowly. Elena, listen to me. No, if you walk into that church, he will use you to break me. Then don't break. His eyes darkened. You don't understand. Then explain. His voice dropped so low only she could hear. If he puts a gun to your head, I will give him everything. Elena stared at him. There it was. The truth neither of them could hide from anymore. Not attraction, not protection. Dependence. Obsession. A dangerous kind of devotion that could burn cities. You can't, she whispered. I know. That's insane. Yes. You barely know me. His eyes were fierce now. I know the sound your breath makes when you're trying not to cry. I know you lift your chin when you're afraid. I know you would trade yourself for your sister and hate me for stopping you. I know I have spent 5 years telling myself you were a debt, and every day that lie became harder to survive. Elena's eyes burned. Luca, he looked away first, as if her softness was more dangerous than Marco's threats. We end this tonight, he said. They went to the church in the rain. Of course, it was raining. Black SUVs moved through the dark roads outside the city, like a funeral procession. Elena sat beside Luca in the back seat, wearing a bulletproof vest beneath her coat, one hand clenched around her father's old press badge. Luca noticed. He would tell you to run, he said. No, Elena said. He would tell me to get the truth. Luca's gaze softened, then hardened again. At the church, candles glowed through broken stained glass. Fog curled over the wet ground. Marco's men stood at the entrance with guns. Luca stepped out first. Elena followed. Marco waited at the altar with Claire beside him. Elena, Claire cried. Elena moved forward. Luca caught her wrist. Slowly, he whispered. Marco clapped once. Beautiful. The monster and his journalist. Luca's voice was calm. Let her sister go, Marco smiled. Still giving orders in another man's church. This isn't a church anymore. No? Marco gestured around. Looks holy enough for a sacrifice. Elena's stomach turned. Then she saw him, Agent Reed, standing in the shadows near the confession booth. Alive, bruised, smiling. You, she whispered. Reed stepped forward. You really should have come with me when I asked. The betrayal settled deeper. You helped kidnap my sister. I helped correct a mistake. Luca's men shifted behind him, but Marco's gun pressed to Claire's head. Everyone froze. Marco looked at Luca. Here's the deal. You sign over the ports. You confess to killing Daniel Carter. You walk out in handcuffs, and I let the women live. Elena went still. What did he say? Marco's smile widened. Oh, he didn't tell you? Luca's face became stone. Elena turned to him. Luca. He didn't answer. Marco laughed softly. Your father wasn't killed because he warned Luca. He was killed because he refused to publish the story that would destroy him. Elena's breath stopped. Marco continued, enjoying every second. Daniel Carter found proof of Moretti crimes. Real proof. Not the files Reed fed you. Your father was going public. Then suddenly, he changed his mind. Why? Because young Luca begged him not to. Elena looked at Luca. Rain dripped through the broken ceiling between them. Tell me he's lying. Luca's silence destroyed her. I asked your father for 48 hours, he said quietly. There were children in a building Bellini planned to bomb if the story aired. My sister was there. Sophia was there. Elena's voice shook. And then my father died. Yes. Because of you? Because of Bellini. Because you pulled him into your war. The words echoed through the church. Luca accepted them like a sentence. Yes. The pain in his eyes was unbearable because it was deserved. Elena stepped back from him. For the first time since the studio, Luca looked afraid of her. Not of losing power, of losing her. Marco sighed happily. Now that we've ruined the romance, he raised his gun. Everything happened at once. Claire screamed. Reed grabbed Elena from behind. Luca moved toward her, but Marco fired into the ceiling. Choose! Marco shouted. Empire or woman? Reed pressed a gun to Elena's temple. She felt the cold metal, felt Luca's eyes lock on hers. In that instant, she understood what he had meant. He would give up everything. Ports, money, power, blood, all of it, for her, and somehow that terrified her more than the gun. Don't, she mouthed. Luca looked at her like she had already killed him. Then he lowered his weapon. Marco smiled. Elena closed her eyes and drove her elbow backward into Reed's ribs. The gun fired. Luca roared her name. His men stormed the church. Chaos exploded. Elena hit the floor, pain tearing through her shoulder. Not her head, her shoulder. She was alive. Luca reached her through bullets and smoke, dropping beside her with a violence in his face she had never seen. "Look at me," he commanded. She tried, her vision blurred. "Claire," she whispered, "she's safe. Don't leave." "I'm not." His hand pressed against her wound. His other hand cradled her face. Around them, the church became war. But Luca did not look away from her. "Not once. You do not get to die angry at me," he said, voice shaking under the command. Elena tried to laugh, but it came out broken. "I'm very angry." "Good." "Luca, no. I need to say it. No. I hate what you did." His jaw clenched. "I know, but I don't hate you." The words broke him, not visibly to anyone else, but she saw it. The ruthless Luca Moretti, feared by judges and killers, bowed his head until his forehead touched hers. "Elena," he whispered, and this time her name was almost a prayer. Then Marco Bellini screamed from the altar. Luca looked up. The softness vanished. He stood. Elena caught his sleeve weakly. "Don't become him." Luca looked down at her. For one long second, the old world and the new one fought inside him. Then he lowered his gun. "Take him alive," he said. His men obeyed, and because of Elena Carter, Luca Moretti chose mercy once in a church built for sinners. 3 weeks later, Elena returned to television. Not the same studio, not the same woman. Her shoulder still ached beneath the white blazer she wore. Her face was thinner, her eyes darker. But when the red light blinked on, she did not look afraid. Across America, millions watched again. Some wanted scandal, some wanted romance, some wanted blood. Elena gave them truth. She exposed Reed. She exposed Bellini. She exposed corrupt agents, judges, shell companies, and the network of men who had used her father's death, her grief, and her ambition as weapons. And then she looked into the camera. "Luca Moretti is not innocent," she said. The control room went still. Somewhere across the city, Luca was watching. She knew he was. He is dangerous. He is powerful. He has done things that should never be romanticized. But the truth is not simple, because powerful men prefer darkness, and frightened people prefer simple monsters. She placed her father's press badge on the desk. "My father died because he believed truth mattered. I almost died because I thought truth was only a weapon. I was wrong. Truth is also a responsibility." Her voice softened. "Tonight, I will not protect Luca Moretti, and I will not lie about him. I will tell the whole story." When the broadcast ended, no gunman came, no lights shattered, no one screamed, only silence. Then Elena walked out of the studio into the rain. A black SUV waited at the curb. Of course it did. Luca stood beside it, coat collar turned up, face unreadable beneath the city lights. For a moment, neither moved. Then Elena walked toward him. "You watched?" she asked. "Yes." "Angry?" "Yes." She almost smiled. "About which part?" "The part where you told millions of people I'm dangerous." "You are." "And the part where you said you wouldn't protect me." "I won't." His eyes held hers. "No," he said quietly. "You'll save me, which is worse." The rain fell between them. Elena looked at the man who had haunted her life, ruined her certainty, protected her family, lied to her, bled for her, and changed because she asked him not to become a monster in a church full of ghosts. "I'm not yours," she said. Luca's gaze dropped to her mouth. then back to her eyes. No. The answer surprised her. He stepped closer, stopping just before touching her. But I am yours in ways I don't know how to survive. Her breath caught. This was not softness. Not exactly. It was devotion with teeth. A dangerous man offering the only honest thing he had left. Himself. Elena should have walked away. Maybe the wiser version of her would have. But wisdom had never held her in a burning museum. It had never shielded her from bullets on live television. It had never stood in the rain, looking at her like the whole city could fall, and only her answer would matter. She reached for his hand. Luca went still, as if he had faced guns, betrayal, and death without flinching. But her fingers around his could undo him. "You don't get to own me," she whispered. His hand closed around hers, carefully, reverently. "No," he said. "I get to choose you, every day, even when it costs me." Elena stepped closer. The cameras across the street flashed. The city saw them. The world would talk. Let it. Luca lifted his free hand, almost touching her cheek. This time, he didn't stop. His fingers brushed her skin with impossible restraint. "Elena Carter," he murmured, "you are the most dangerous thing that ever happened to me." She looked up at him through the rain. Good. And when he kissed her, it was not gentle enough to be safe or wild enough to be careless. It was a vow made in darkness, a promise from a man who had spent his life taking power and had finally found someone he would surrender it for. Above them, New York glittered like a kingdom of secrets. Behind them, the cameras flashed brighter, and in the back seat of the black SUV, a single white rose waited on the leather seat. This time, Elena knew exactly who it was from. This time, she took it with her.